Welcome back to Terrier Nation. I'm your host, Austin Cottrell.
And I'm Mira Patel. On this episode of Terrier Nation, Belle Fraser gives us the latest on men's ice hockey. Brooke, Alessi, and Mason Jablonsky update us on women's ice hockey. And we'll hear from Tyler Davis and Haley Alvarez-Laudo as they recap men's and women's soccer.
Taylor Hawthorne and Henry Dinh-Price preview the upcoming men's basketball season. And Eric Pepe and Kyle Finn take an early look at women's basketball.
All this and more tonight on Terrier Nation.
Thanks, Mira and Austin. It was a battle between two blue bloods of college hockey this weekend as the number 9 Boston University men's team hosted the number 3 University of North Dakota Fighting Hawks at Agganis Arena for 2 games. The Terriers split the series, winning 3-2 on Friday and falling 4-3 in overtime on Saturday. Despite the loss, BU showed what it was made of and played closer to its high-flying offense and defensively responsible identity, following a slow start to the season. Sophomore defenseman Lane Hudson had a 4-goal weekend, including a hat trick on Saturday that tied the game 3-3 heading into the third period. Seniors Luke Tuck and Dylan Peterson also had strong showings, leaning into their power forward role while adding an edge of physicality to the matchup. On the blue line, the pair of freshman defensemen Aiden Celebrini and Tom Wielander continued to impress as they played a smart and simple game. The two Vancouver Canucks prospects have found great chemistry in their first year as Terriers. BU special teams were another highlight against North Dakota. Their penalty kill came up big on Friday, killing off 2 late penalties in the third period to protect the 1-goal lead and ultimately secure the win. The Terriers also had 2 power play goals on Friday, an area of their game that head coach Jay Pandolfo said they wanted to work on ahead of this weekend. BU showed real grit and character against North Dakota, and it's something they'll look to carry into the rest of the season. Next up, the Terriers will get back to Hockey East competition against UMass Lowell on November 10th and November 11th in the home-and-home series, with Saturday night at Agganis Arena. Now, let's throw it over to Brooke and Mason on women's ice hockey.
Thanks, Belle. With the 2-game win streak, we've seen a great turnaround from our women's hockey team since the last episode. On October 20th, the Terriers tied Syracuse 4-4 and came back the very next day with a dominant performance, securing a 6-1 victory. Defender Nadia Mativi was standout of the weekend. Mativi scored her first goal of the season and logged 3 assists, helping new coach Watchern gain her first win with BU and earning herself the title as Hockey East Defender of the Week on October 23rd.
Yeah, definitely, Brooke. We really started to see the Terriers find their groove in the Syracuse series after BU dropped their first 2 games of the season against Northeastern. The Terriers held on to that momentum as they glided into their next game against Maine on October 28th. The matchup was deadlocked at 3 goals apiece midway through the third period before forward Clara Yoon stole the show in Orono. With 8:16 left on the clock, Yoon fired the go-ahead goal from the right circle off the setup from Nadia Mativi and Tamara Giaquinto. The Terriers held off the Black Bears after Yoon's cold-blooded shot and grabbed their second straight win. When you look at how BU has played recently, you have to love how they are controlling the flow of the game and setting the tone on both ends. Against Maine, the Terriers fired 42 shots on goal, while the Black Bears only had 18. It was the same story in Game 2 against Syracuse, with the Terriers racking up 43 shots to just 13 for the Orange. If this trend continues, don't be surprised if the Terriers freeze a slew of other squads as the season progresses. BU stayed red hot in their weekend home-and-home series against Merrimack on November 3rd and 4th as the Terriers outshot the Warriors in back-to-back overtime nail-biters. In Game 1, the Terriers were on thin ice as they trailed 1-0 going into the final minute of regulation. Forward Neely Nicholson was the hero of the night, scoring the equalizer with just 56.8 seconds on the clock. Forward Catherine Fulem called game off a nifty pass from Mativi 3 minutes into the extra period. Then in Game 2, forward Lacey Martin scored her first collegiate hat trick before Giaquinto delivered the dagger in overtime. As we've seen so far, BU has brought in some thrilling newcomers like Neely Nicholson. but you might recognize one of the team's other new recruits.
The women's hockey team has completed their coaching staff, adding a familiar face to the bunch. Reagan Rust, a former Terrier standout, is coming on board as an assistant coach. Rust played 143 games in her 4 years at BU, totaling 63 points with 17 goals and 46 assists. As senior captain for the 2018-2019 season, she was a Hockey East Honorable Mention All-Star and was awarded the John B. Simpson Award, which is given to a player who demonstrates enthusiasm and leadership. After her college career, Rust continued to excel in the hockey world, competing in the Premier Hockey Federation and the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, in addition to stints in Hungary and Sweden.
Yeah, absolutely, Brooke. Rust's extraordinary pedigree speaks for itself, and the team is thrilled to welcome her back to Commonwealth Avenue. Head coach Tara Watchern said, quote, "Reagan will also be an immediate asset to our group, bringing a great deal of experience as an athlete and fellow Terrier with her. I am so excited to see what she can do behind the bench as a Terrier." With Rust's return to Wally B, the BU coaching staff gains a former Terrier whose skill in the rink is exceeded only by her outstanding character. We can't wait to see Rust and the Terriers continue their sensational season. Let's send it to Tyler and Haley with a soccer recap.
Thanks, Brooke and Mason. For the men's team, their latest game against Army West Point, the Terriers kicked Army out of the competition, beating them 2-0. The goals were scored by Andrew Rent and Alex Bonington. However, goalkeeper Francesco Montali put on quite the performance, keeping a clean sheet for the Terriers. Montali has been an absolute brick wall for this team. With their win over Army, the Terriers clinched their first Patriot League regular season title since 2014. In addition to their huge victory, the Terriers also claimed a number of program best awards. Montali received Goalkeeper of the Year, Griffin Roach received Defensive Player of the Year, Itan Rosen received Offensive Player of the Year, and Kevin Nyland received Coach of the Year. Haley, how is the women's soccer team doing?
Well, Tyler, the women's team has had a heck of a ride this season, going 7-7-6 in Patriot League action before falling 3-1 to Bucknell in the semifinals. Although this wasn't the result the Terriers were hoping for, I do think there are some pretty amazing highlights we can talk about from this year. The game that really jumps right out at me is the quarterfinal matchup against Lehigh, where the team endured 2 periods of overtime before finally prevailing in a penalty shootout. It was an incredible game, and I really feel a sign of potential that this team has going forward. One big takeaway from this season for me was that sophomore Giuliana Giannino really established herself as a leader, scoring a team-high 7 goals and 5 assists. She also collected all Patriot League academic honors along with teammate Morgan Fagan. Giannino is definitely someone to keep your eye on going forwards. Now, let's toss things over to Henry and Taylor with a preview on the men's basketball team.
Thanks, Tyler and Haley. The men's basketball team's reign as one of the main contenders to win the Patriot League is no more, as uncertainty looms around their roster for this season. In the past 3 seasons, the Terriers have been projected to finish either first or second in the conference, but this year they are projected to finish 5th, according to preseason polls. However, the last time the Terriers were picked to finish 5th, in the 2019-20 season, they won it all. So Taylor, maybe this is the year for the Terriers to surprise some people.
Last season was disappointing for BU, as the number 2 team in the Patriot League preseason polls finished league play in 5th place with an 8-10 conference record. Once they got to postseason tournament, the Terriers were not able to make their Cinderella run. An overtime loss to 4th-seeded Army West Point in the Patriot League quarterfinals saw BU's season come to a close earlier than expected.
Since then, BU has graduated all 5 of its primary starters and leading scorers. Most importantly, the Terriers will be without Walter White this season. No, not the high school chemistry teacher. White, the former BU star, finished his career in 6th place on the Terriers' all-time points leaderboard. He also ranks 4th all-time in career rebounds for BU. The loss of White, a 4-time All-Patriot League selection, will be a difficult hole to fill.
The Terriers enter this season with 8 new players on the roster, which is the highest roster turnover the team has seen during head coach Joe Jones's 13 years at BU. This team also marks the end of an era, as it is the first time that BU returns no players from the 2019-20 Patriot League championship team.
As for the returning players, This year, the leader will be senior guard Miles Brewster, who appeared in all 32 games last season and started in 10. He is elite on the defensive end and has the most experience on this BU roster by far. However, Brewster has never been tasked with carrying a big chunk of the scoring load, as he averaged 4.7 points per game last season. It will be interesting to see how he handles that challenge this year. Taylor, who do you see as potential standouts this season?
The front court should feature the lights of 6'8 junior Malcolm Chemezi and 6'9 sophomore Otto Landrum. Chemezi featured in 25 games last season, and Landrum saw the court for 20 contests. Landrum had the highest field goal percentage on the team last year, and Chemezi was not far behind in second. They both had solid seasons in their more limited roles, but they will be tasked with much more responsibility as starters this year. Hopefully, they can rise to the occasion.
Yeah, these two bigs, along with senior forward Anthony Morales, are the returners expected to get the most minutes accompanying Brewster. Morales, the leading scorer among returners, with just over 5 points per game last season, will be crucial on the offensive end for BU. Unfortunately, he is currently dealing with a knee injury and is not expected to return until at least December.
As for who rounds out the rest of the Terriers' rotation, we will just have to wait and see who impresses early in the season. We are excited to possibly witness an impressive comeback by the Terriers. That's all we have for men's basketball. Now let's send it over to Kyle and Pepe to preview the women's team.
Thanks for that, Taylor and Henry. I'm Eric Pepe, joined by Kyle Finn, and we have a lot to talk about with the start of the Terriers women's basketball season approaching. Quickly looking back, the Terriers were dominant against their conference opponents, going 17-1 last year. The Patriot League preseason poll was just released on October 12th, and has the Terriers ranked a close second place. Kyle, any thoughts on how this will play into the season start?
I think the conference decided to make the poll this way to start some early season drama. Yes, the conference championship game between BU and Holy Cross was close. Yes, Holy Cross did come into enemy territory and pull out a huge win for their program, but the Terriers dominated all season long during conference play. In games where they faced their conference opponents, they had 8 blowout wins. Even in the quarter and semifinal games, they blew out their opponents. The 2 key losses came against Holy Cross, where it came down to the game's final possessions. I know for certain the Terriers have all Holy Cross games circled on their calendar, especially January 29th's game.
You are absolutely right, Kyle, because that matchup will be a nationally televised event. It is the return of the 2 Titans of last season. Both teams will be ready with plenty of games under their belt and no more rust. If you ask me, part of the reason why the Patriot League identified Holy Cross and BU as ranked 1 and 2, respectively, is to promote and get even more drama. It will be one of my favorites of the season. That is a game you do not want to miss. But there's still plenty of time before that midseason matchup. Let's look at some of the early games in the Terrier schedule.
The Terriers start off the season at home against UMass Lowell, New Hampshire, and Yale. The Terriers have a lot of new faces entering the program, 6 freshmen specifically, plus transfers. These 3 games are going to be important to see how the chemistry comes together and where the new players excel the most in. One of the biggest concerns last year was free throw shooting. The team shot 72% at the line. If games are going to be tighter this year, opposing teams could use this to their advantage. The goal the Terriers should have set is at least 80% free throw shooting, as well as winning a minimum of 2 out of 3 games to start off the year and set the tone.
Yeah, hopefully the new Terriers will be able to rise to the occasion and clutch up at the line. I think an important part of this is going to be the leadership from Caitlin Weimer. Weimer is heading into her senior year and has already been named the Patriot League preseason player and defensive player of the year, which is an absolutely incredible accomplishment. Being named preseason player of the year is something you put on the resume. Being named both preseason player and defensive player of the year is something to put on the gravestone. She's a star player for the Terriers and will serve as a role model for the rest of the team. But she needs to also collaborate with these new faces if she wants the Terriers to accomplish what they came so close to last year.
She was certainly the start of the team. Weimer was the only Terrier to finish with a double-double on the year, 15 points and 10 boards to be exact. What helped her get there was offensive rebounds. Those second chance opportunities helped BU pull away big time in those games last year. We can only expect a similar performance this season, but she will need some assistance too. That is where Anate Adler will come in, standing at 6'5", where she collected almost 14 boards a game in Estonia in the 2021 season, allowing her to get 10 points a game. Plus, with the influx of guards, third-year head coach Melissa Graves should have a fun time putting this team together with towering height and lightning speed.
Yeah, Melissa Graves has certainly got her plate full this year. I can't wait for the season to get going and watch these Lady Terriers in action. You just know it's going to be a good one. All right, that will do it for us. Let's bounce it back to our hosts, Mira and Austin.
Thanks, Pepe and Kyle. And that's all we have time for tonight on Terrier Nation. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and X for the latest Terrier sports updates at Terrier Nation 10. I'm Mira Patel.
And I'm Austin Cottrell. From all of us here at Terrier Nation, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.